That's there. All right.
Oh, we are live.
You giggled early. Hello, everybody.
Uh,
Welcome to the Cubist. My name is Bill Corey. I am the Cubist, and it's a two-man show tonight. Quite literally, I have Patrick Hillier here. Hello, Patrick.
Hello, how are you?
I am well, sir. How are you?
I am doing great.
Outstanding. Tonight is our open letter. This is the show where we are going to discuss things that we would like the gaming hobby to hear. We're going to be talking. Part of this is going to be to publishers and designers and you players and consumers and us. We're going to do a little navel gazing and talk about what we wish we'd see more of from media and BG and whatever. But it's going to be sort of an open letter. So chat room, hello, how's it going? Chat room folks, sound off in the chat room, of course, and give us your ideas as well over the span of it. But before we get to the open letter, let's talk about what we've been playing lately. I am going to be a terrible host, and I'm going to go first. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Do you care?
Ahead.
All right. I want to talk about Altiplano. Altiplano, I guess I'm assuming I'm saying that right. Designed by Rainer Stockhausen. This is the DLP game that is being brought over by Renegade Game Studios. We'll talk more about the publisher thingy in a half a second. Altiplano is the follow-up to Orleans. This is the next in the bag building game idea. So the idea is that you have your chips that you put in your bag, you pull out a random number of them, and then you assign them to your player board, which allows you to take actions. Unlike Orleans, the chips are much more varied in Altiplano. In Orleans, I think there are 6, right? There's the brown guy, the blue guy, the black guy, the white guy, the yellow guy, and the gray guy. Yeah, there's 6. I'm sorry, I have to think of them by the colors. I can't.
Yes.
I can't do names.
Knight.
There's a craftsman in there somewhere, and the knight. There's 7.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the farmer is white, the boatsman's blue, merchant is black, the knight is red, the monk is yellow, the scholar. There we go. The scholar is gray.
Yes.
That's it, right? I think I got it.
I've totally lost it.
And then the brown one, the craftsman. There's 7. Okay, so there's 7. And in Altiplano, I believe there are like 11. I think there's 11 different chips because there's food. And then there are these 7 location boards, and each location board has stuff on it. Mm-hmm. And those things that are on it are either cards, which we'll get back to in a second, or they are more chips. So you also have a meeple. Wherever your meeple is the part of the board that you can interact with. And then your action board is divided into sections that correspond with those 7 locations. So if your meeple is in, let's say, the woods, then you look down at your board and you can take any of the actions that are in the woods part of the thing. And then during your turn, you can move your meeple around and following certain rules for using food and wagons and whatnot, and take further actions, so on and so forth. And you eventually, whenever you take actions, you end up getting more chips that you will put into your bag after you've exhausted your bag. So this is difference number 1 from Orleans, right? In Orleans, everything just went straight into your bag.
Yeah.
Every turn. In this game, you have to get through your entire bag before you dump anything back in. So it feels more like a traditional deck builder in that everything gets shuffled. Like once you buy it, it's going to go into your discard pile, in this case, a little box, and then you'll pull it back out. You rinse and repeat until one of the boards is completely empty, or the extensions, which are sort of like the buildings that you get from the merchants in Orleans.
Yeah.
Or when that stack runs out. One of those 2 things. And as soon as one of those runs out, the game ends. I was a big fan of Orleans. Orleans was, I think, my game of the year of 2015, 2013. I don't remember. When did it come out? I don't remember when Orleans came out because I'm having a brain fart. But whenever it came out, it was one of my top games of that year. I really liked it. Molly, my girlfriend Molly, really likes Orleans. That is one of her go-to games that she always thinks about. And so I was really excited to play the follow-up.
2014.
Okay, there you go. So when I played this, to give you an idea on how much I liked it, I went on a French website and ordered a copy of it delivered and ended up paying like $75 US for a game that I know for a fact will be significantly cheaper in a couple months when it gets here from Renegade. But I don't want to wait a couple more months. I liked it that much. So this is a first impression. I've only played it once. So I am fully acknowledging knee-jerk attitude here and the fact that this is my acquisition disorder in full effect here. But it fixes all of these small issues I ever had with Orleans really nicely and gives it more of a sandboxy feel.
It does have that more. It does seem like it has a little more options.
Mm-hmm. Orleans, it seems like every game devolved into how am I going to get books? At least the base game. Now I haven't played with the expansions.
Yeah, I've always won with books. The latest expansion, what is it called? Intrigue?
Trade Intrigue or something like that.
Yeah, adds this new board that really shakes things up a lot. It really pushes you to cull your deck, for lack of a better term. And there is a lot of more action between the players dumping their stuff out onto that. That really makes it really interesting.
Gotcha. And the way that you cull in Altiplano, I think, is more interesting as well, because you basically are culling into your own storehouse, which then is a source of points.
Right.
So I thought that was really interesting too. The way the culling is still there, but it's no longer this group thing. Now it's just kind of your thing. So you can cull it whatever your speed is. Yes, Mike in the chat. Yes, Renegade is bringing Altiplano in a couple of months. I ordered my copy from France though, because I'm an idiot. And I decided that I really needed to spend a few extra bucks to get it a couple months early because I think I like it that much. So as you can probably guess, it's a buy it for me, obviously, since I did. I will say this. It is long. It feels longer, especially your first play. It feels significantly longer than you would expect a game of this weight to feel. At least that was my expectation. But for me, that's a good thing. I can see that being a negative for a lot of gamers. For me, it was very much a positive. I like the fact that I get my little engine rolling and then I can just work it and fine tune it over the span of that mid game. You know what I mean? And like it gives you lots of time to kind of get your game together. Because I spent the first maybe quarter of that game lost.
Yeah,
I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm like, well, this is kind of neat. All right, I don't know. Why can't I get any alpacas? There are alpacas, of course.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's probably part of why Netters likes it so much. They're alpacas. But yeah, no, I spent the first quarter of the game grumbling because I couldn't get alpacas and I couldn't figure out how to get alpacas. And then I realized, well, you don't have to get alpacas, right? Like you can. That's one of the neat things about this. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say the one thing it adds to is I don't know what they were called. They were sort of mission cards, whatever you want to call them. Like turn in, 2 alpacas and a spool of thread, and you get some victory points. I didn't figure those out until mid game, and then I saw like, oh, I do need to get a spool of thread.
Yep.
And so I shifted my game around and started collecting these things and then turning those in. And and Netter sort of said, games get faster with plays because you start to realize how to run the different parts of the board.
Right. And the cards that you're talking about, and I'm about to expose the fact that I'm always afraid that I get a rule wrong whenever I talk about a game after one play. So if I get a rule wrong, Netters is sitting in the chat right now, and I'm sure she's played it way more than I have. So smite me if I'm wrong, Netters. But every time you get to look through one of those decks, you get to look through the deck. Right. You don't have to draw the top thing off of whatever deck it is.
Yeah. Right.
So if you are not, like alpacas are a thing that you aren't going to get, then don't take a contract with alpacas. Right. Like you can sort of aim your own stuff, which is the thing that's where I screwed up. And that's why I was grumbly. Right. Because I took a contract that needed an alpaca and then promptly realized I couldn't figure out how to get one of the damn things. So I was like, well, crap. Now what do I do? And so I kind of stalled out for a little bit, but I ended up doing very well. I think I won. But I had a blast. More importantly, I had so much fun. It was more open-ended, which is the one thing I didn't love about Orleans, is it felt like it always sort of devolved into the same things. Orleans feels very one-pathy, and I don't want to, the expansions are all well and good, but I like the fact that Altiplano, it's just baked right in. It's whatever you want that engine to be. So I really like it.
Cool.
And it's really cute.
Yeah.
The art's really cute. It's really well produced.
Cute. Yeah. The only thing on the art that's a little weird is I haven't figured out how you bang two fish together to get rocks, but I'll bring that. I mentioned that for Brandon, who couldn't make the show.
There's so many bad jokes in there. Oh, it's terrible. Moving on before I think about fish banging. Patrick, looking at your shelf.
Look, well, hey, I'm gonna mention one thing first. Okay. So over the holidays, I stopped by Adam MacGyver's house, and we said hello. And
I hate you so much. For those of you that don't know, Adam MacGyver, the designer of Ex Libris and graphic designer and game designer extraordinaire, got married this past summer.
Yes.
To Carrie Rundle MacGyver, and I was the DJ for their wedding, and they had a butterfly room, and I am terrified of flying insects of all flavors. So Patrick is currently taunting me, which is
butterfly. Yeah, we actually visited the crone before visiting them, so it happened to come up.
It is a very cool place that I wish I had been more mentally prepared for, and I'll just leave it at that.
Apparently so. So usually you bring this up as like, not what did you play this recently, but what game has been on your mind recently? So I actually haven't played Iron Dragon in a while. I last played it at BGG, but it's been on my mind a lot lately, so I'm going to bring it up.
Sure.
So I put Iron Dragon on my Christmas wish list, and the reason I did that is we were playing at BGG. I'm a Crayon Rails game collector. That's one of the few game series that I collect. I've been playing Empire Builder since it came out in the 80s. I think it's 85 is when the first one came out, and I have the Martian one and the Lunar one and the Britain one and European one and whatever. And I finally tracked down the Iron Dragon one, I think about 2 years ago, and played it. And this one's set in kind of a mythological world
it's Crayon Rails meets D&D.
Right, yeah. And then it has this underground area that's different, and you have boats, and you have these foremen that help you build your lines better. And for those of you who don't know, so Crayon Rails, you have this grid on your map, and you use crayons to draw between the dots to build your line, and then you just pick up in one city, it tells you to pick up a good. I'll use Empire Builder as an example. You'll pick up sugar in San Francisco and deliver it to Detroit for $45 million. Your goal is to get $250 million, and you win the game. And that's just really that simple. But this one, you're picking up magic wands in over here to deliver them to the orcs over here, and it just adds this layer of flavor to it. That's just a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm playing, with Kathleen Mercury, who is a lot of fun, and it's one of her favorite games. So we made.
I think it is her favorite game. I think that's her number one.
It could very well be, and it's one of and I'm a favorite. So we made this play date with me and her boyfriend and one other guy, and we're playing a game, and this guy comes up wearing a Catan shirt, and she knew him from some relationship at Mayfair, and they're whispering to each other, and all of a sudden she gets online and she goes, you know what, I think I better order another copy of Iron Dragon. And this is like a week after the whole Mayfair news breaks, and I was just thinking, you know what, I don't really need another copy of Iron Dragon. I own it already, but it's so pretty. It is. It's a new version. It's got really pretty art. The only negative about it is the classic versions use tiddlywink size plastic poker chips with stickers on them, and this one is more of like a cardboard punch out, which just is not as clinky, for lack of a better term. You
like the chips better?
I like the chips a little bit better, just because out of nostalgia.
Sure.
Other than that, it really is gorgeous. It's got a beautiful board, and it's got a beautiful upgraded art and everything. So it is an upgrade.
Iron Dragon. So I've talked about having worked with Mayfair in the past on the show. More importantly, the co-designer Tom Wam is a local hero here.
Yes.
His original, from just down the road from Lake Geneva. He's one of the original old guard of when gaming really sort of the slow transition from D&D into board gaming. Tom Mom was one of the first that really embraced it, actually.
Yeah.
So I would say that Netters in the chat, I would say all of the crayon rails play well at 2. I don't think there's a single crayon.
Yeah.
They're almost, generally speaking, they get recommended as 2 to 3 player games at most. They always say they play 6. I would rather punch myself in the face than play a 6-player game of any crayon rails game.
I say an hour a person. I think that's what Ryan Sturm used to say, and I agree with that 100%.
That's about right. But I think that Iron Dragon, the nice thing, okay, so when you play all of the other, because I'm with you, I love crayon rails, okay? And I wanted to love Lunar Rails. I own it. I wanted to love it, but didn't. And the reason that I didn't is because I felt like a solid 20% of your processing power while you're playing the game is just trying to figure out where all these locations are.
Agree.
And even if, I mean, unless you are a space fan that has the craters of the moon memorized, you're not going to know where anything is. Right. Even like the Euro maps, you know what I mean? Or the different, at least you're learning an important piece of geography that might potentially be useful. And in most of the cases, you at least have a vague idea anyway. Yeah, sorry, chat room. It sounds like the sound and the video are not syncing up 100%. It's fine on Patrick's and my end. I don't notice any lag at all. So it must be a YouTube thing. Sorry about that. Try reloading the page. Sometimes that'll help because sometimes it just buffers weird, although it's all of you. So then I have no idea. But the way Lunar Rails, I really struggle with. Iron Dragon, unless they really changed the map, and I have not seen the new version of it, did something really smart in that every country is a letter, and then all of the cities in that country start with the same letter of the alphabet.
Right.
So like this region of the map is the G region, and then all of the places in that have a G title. So if you look at your contract card and the name of the city is G, then you immediately can just scan to that part of the map and you'll eventually figure it out.
Right.
So
very quickly.
Yeah. And it just works. It works so well. If you're going to use a map that is unfamiliar and you get to like, I understand that the moon, they actually went with historical accuracy. It still makes it a struggle. This is less of a struggle than that by a long shot.
Exactly.
So
this one works really well.
Okay. So I'm going to make you give this one 2 ratings, Patrick. Rating number 1 for people that don't know crayon rails or are not crayon rail nuts. How do you rate this one?
Well,
the new version.
Because of it's hard to say, because of the potential rarity of it, at Mayfair issues, I'm gonna have to say buy it.
Yeah, because the worst case scenario, you can flip it, I suppose.
Well, it may become a collector's item.
Well, and really, I'm behind on the news cycle at the moment, so I don't know if we've gotten a final result on the whole Mayfair dust up yet.
I don't either.
I don't think there has been that I have noticed, or nobody. If there is, I missed it.
Yeah,
Sam, somewhere along the way. All right.
What other crayon rails game are there?
There's a ton.
There's dozens. Yeah.
The granddaddy is Empire Builder. That's the one that'll start you off. Although I would argue that Euro Rails is a slightly better game.
That's what people say. Yeah.
I think that they're both really good. You can't go wrong with either one of those two to start you off. And then there is Nippon Rails and Australia Rails and Lunar Rails and Martian Rails and
India.
There's a Russian one too, right?
Russian.
Yeah. There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
So, but I would say if you're thinking about a 2-player game like this, start with either Empire Builder, which you can get pretty cheap even nowadays because it's been in print forever. So I would start with Empire Builder or possibly Euro Rails. Start with one of those two or this. I would argue that this is a fine entry point as well.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't add much.
As long as you like the theme. I mean, if you're not offended by a fantasy theme.
Yeah, the fantasy theme doesn't bother you for sure.
But what's funny is I actually have a T-shirt from Empire Builder that says, I learned everything I learned about geography. I learned from Empire Builder, and I still do to this day. I forget who's from Calgary. All the Bits podcast. Sean's from Calgary, and I'm like, oh yeah, you can get cows in Calgary.
Well, the Calgary Stampede, that's a legit thing.
And I have all these strange little tidbits, or
yes,
bauxite from Memphis, and it's just like, Really?
I don't even know what bauxite is. If I'm
I
being,
think they make aluminum out of it.
okay. But yeah, I legitimately, the first time I ever heard the word bauxite was from playing Empire Builders. So
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, I mean, and we're kind of halfway chuckling, but legitimately, like, it's not a bad way to learn geography.
No,
because you do really have to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
So as a citizen of the world, that's actually another great reason to pick Eurorails, honestly, because it gets you sort of thinking about the rest of the world, not just the US. Although, like I said, Empire Builders, solid game as well.
Yes.
All right, so it's a buy it for people that don't care. What about people that already own Iron Dragon? Like they own the first edition. Is it enough of an upgrade?
No. There wasn't a the art stuff. The art and stuff is, yeah, but I mean, there's not much else in it upgraded. You know, it does have some other interesting things. I'm going to say yes. It's got a whole bunch of like variant rules in the back. Like people have added things, you know, talked about them on BGG and the stuff, and they have a whole page in the back of those built into it, which is kind of cool. You know, like I said, there's only one thing that I opened it up and I'm like, I wish this were in here. Where the poker chips. So yeah, I'd say yeah.
All right.
I'm happy with it.
Well, I need to get a copy of it because I've always really liked Iron Dragon. I used to have a copy of it somewhere along the way. I don't know if it got borrowed and never returned or what happened, but I no longer do, and I wish I did. So I need to get another copy.
Cool.
All right. I was going to talk about one more, but I want to get into the main topic more. So I'm going to teaser. We're not going to talk about that one. You'll have to wait for next week.
Okay.
But in the meanwhile, let's get into our open letters. So I feel like the reason that I wanted to do this as an episode is because I feel like there are certain topics that we talk about on this show and in media in general, which are things that I feel like we're always saying out loud. Like we're hoping that, you know, like somehow if the magical winds carry our words to a publisher, that they will hear this and move on. And so I sort of wanted to make this a collection of all of those things. But more importantly, I also want it to be positive and negative. This is not just going to be a rant fest, okay? Because at the end of the day, we all are fans of this hobby, right? So it's really easy to find negative stuff and just bitch and complain about it. It's more interesting when you force yourself to look at the good things that you think that people need to hear as well. So we're going to try really hard to focus on both halves of these things. And I don't want anybody to feel like we're, you know, pulling punches here, because we're definitely not going to do that, as we'll talk about near the end of this. But, you know, so but we are also going to make sure that we don't this isn't just 45 minutes of Patrick and I ranting at each other and the industry at large. We're not going to do that. So, but let's start with the category that I feel like is the easiest one. This is the one that it feels like everybody grumps about the most, which are publishers. Publishers take a lot of crap from end users like us. They really do. We're always complaining about this or that was a poor decision, or this game is too expensive, or I can't believe you used this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to get into specifics, but I think there are some things that we've always kind of wanted to say. So Patrick, I went first on games. Can I throw you on the spot and make you go first here?
Oh, sure. I'll always complain about a rule book.
All right. Yes.
You know,
word.
So just today there was a tweet about First Martians, and somebody said it was Dustin Schwartz, who edits rule books. Now I think he started doing it professionally.
Yes, I think you are correct.
And he tweeted out, "Hey, I'm thinking about playing First Martians. How should I learn how to play it?" And I forget who it was. Charlie Thiel from Ding and Dent said, "Don't read the rule book. Get the whatever. There's some sort of appendix thing that's in the app and some other thing.
The almanac.
The almanac, which didn't exist when I played for my first game.
Right.
And just go, you know, get the app and the almanac is what he said. And I said, well, hey, that's probably pretty, maybe it'll work, because reading the rule book was not very good for me.
Right. And there's also, let's not ignore Rodney Smith and his excellent watch it played video of the game.
Yes.
You got an hour to kill. He'll teach you the game just as well.
Correct.
But
it still was missing some things.
Yeah. And the core issue is still there, right? You should be
I don't
able
know.
to
I haven't picked it up.
Okay. So I own it. Yeah. And I watched Rodney's video and was still flustered in spots.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to, and I don't want to harp on Ignacy. I don't want to, and that's a really important thing. Like, we're not going after anybody here, okay? Because this is hard stuff that we don't know. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
Right? So I fully admit my ignorance here, and I am in no way trying to make myself sound like some kind of an expert. But I would very much like a rule book to be able to actually teach me the game, as somebody that has never played it before, accurately teach me the game and be written from a technical writing standpoint.
Right. But also realize that people learn things in different ways. Visually, or reading rule books, or by videos, or whatever. You got to be able to. They got to understand that people learn things different ways.
Yes. Well, but here's the thing: whatever is included in the box, be that the rule book, be that an app that has a good tutorial, you know what I mean, that is free or whatever, or a link to a video, or some combination of those things, whatever it is, you have to be able to play the game effectively from the stuff you give them out the gate. And if you can't do that, then it's a failure on your part, right? Like, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's the truth. You have to be able to play the game from whatever it is you were presented when you paid the money. Now paying somebody like Rodney to make an excellent tutorial video is fine, because you're right. Not everybody learns from reading the rule book, but that was part of what was included, right? Problem is the rule book wasn't perfect either.
Yeah.
And that speaks to a different problem as well, I think, which is blind play testing, but we'll come back to that in a minute. But yeah,
sure.
There are people that are really good at editing rule books, and I would like to, and I'm not just saying this because, and we talked about it last week, actually, I think on the after show. Yeah, on the After Dark. Last week after the main show, we chatted with Travis Hill briefly, who jumped in, and Travis edits rule books. That's one of the things he's doing is side work. And so in full disclosure, I have friends that do this, but it's not about them. It's about my girlfriend being frustrated because she pulls a game off my shelf and wants to teach her daughter and can't because the rule books are incomprehensible. And so she's like, well, I don't know how any of this works.
I miss the Aaliyah style rule books. Those were just so good.
Well, and there are certain companies that have always had a knack for it, right? Like Queen Games had famously good rule books for a while. Check Games rule books are usually pretty good. It's easy to miss. Occasionally, Check Games rule books will have an important rule buried in a paragraph, which can be easy to miss. Yeah. But in general, their rule books are pretty good.
What game I was just
playing? I agree.
Azul had just a little minor thing, and I just barely missed it and screwed up my whole game. And I was just like,
yeah. I agree. Cleanse Caledonia, by the way, does have a very good rule book, and I still screwed up when I taught it the first time. Damn it! I was so mad about that.
There's a thing. There's a thing for players. When we get to that, is you're going to screw something up.
Yeah.
So be a little or media, whatever you want to call it. We need to be a little more forgiving because we're going to screw something up. You got to play it twice because.
Yeah, that's
go back and read your rule book, whatever.
Yeah, that's a really good point, is that we need to be a little it sucks when you get something wrong, but on the other hand, relax. It's okay. I screwed up at BGG when I was teaching a complete stranger, got a rule wrong. And she's like, it's fine. Whatever. I'm having a good time. Great. So yeah, that's a good thing. Chad in the chat. Yeah, I remember a Grigula first edition rule book was real bad. It was like the back of the book, if I recall correctly, was in like 6-point font. It was the sort of the appendix of what every card meant, but they tried to cram it all into like 2 pages, and it was ridiculous. Like you could rate it. Oh, if the lighting was great and you had your bifocals on, yeah, that was about it. So I agree. So I would just like to see the advent. I am willing to pay an extra $5 a game, $10 a game, whatever. I'm willing to pay more for games to get technical writers to look at the rule books and fix them. You know what I mean? Like I personally, and I'm only one person, so that maybe if there's only 5 of us, then that's not going to work out for the bottom line. But we have to get to the point. When I asked Molly earlier today what she would say if she got to write an open letter, and the first thing she said was the rule books have to get better. We are shooting ourselves in the foot as a hobby from expanding our ranks by these bad rule books, because we know we can go to BGG and get a rules clarification, but grandma doesn't know that when she's buying a copy of the game for her kids.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the kids don't know that. Maybe this is the chance that the kids would become full on gamers, but because their first experience was incomprehensible, they can't manage it. So, all right, next thing, let's move on, because otherwise we're just going to stay ranting for a half an hour and that'll be sad. Colorblind friendliness. When I posted the first promotional tweet for the day, the first response that I got was from somebody saying that we need to be more vigilant on keeping things colorblind friendly. And of course, I cannot help but agree, being partially colorblind myself.
Mm-hmm.
Symbols and colors, please. And at the very least, if you have to insist on cubes, then make sure that you are using a colorblind testing app or function or something or whatever to make sure that stuff actually works. The thing that I love Scythe, from Stonemaier Games. And one of the things that I really liked about Scythe is that even if you are colorblind and if the colors aren't great, and I don't know because I have not looked at the 6 colors in Scythe to know whether they are truly colorblind friendly, but at the very least, all of the mechs were different sculpts. All of the meeples were different shapes, right? So you had like different little hats on your dudes, depending on what color they were. And the colors of the other things didn't matter once they were on the map, right? So it was perfectly colorblind friendly, even if it wasn't. But then the Wind Gambit, I took a look at that for the first time, and all 6 of the airships have the exact same sculpt. And I'm like, well, come on, why? Like, that's a step backwards. There's no, why would you do that? So we need to be, and we're getting much better. But every once in a while, there will still be a game where it's like, come on, folks, this is not that hard. Why are we still struggling with this? For crying out loud, I'm not even a designer or publisher, and I have an app on my phone that'll test for colorblindness for all 3 primary, like most common forms of colorblindness. So I can check a game before I bring it to my friend's house. That's the thing. We just need to be better at that. You have any colorblind people in your group, Patrick?
Corey Young is. I don't play with him often, but he's one I know that's around, and he uses his app too. Yep. So we'll be playing a game, and then he'll pull out his phone and show us what it looks like. Yep.
Okay, the colorblind app, the chat's asking what the actual app is called. Let me find it. It is called CV Simulator. It's an iOS app. I'll show you if you can see that right in the center of that box. Mm-hmm. That's what the icon looks like right there, folks. That app right there.
iOS.
The version that I have is iOS. I know there are Android versions of this as well. It's called Chromatic Vision Simulator. And how it works is, here's my main screen, okay? And there's my backdrop, and there's me. And then as I tap this, on the bottom, see that down there? Now it's showing the 4 most common types of colorblindness and what it looks like to people with those forms of colorblindness. So you literally just uses the camera, and it shows there.
Your hair is not colorblind friendly, Bill.
No, I am aware of that.
Okay,
but that's all right. Half of the colorblind people in the world will think that I look perfectly normal, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So anyway, that's how it works. It's really easy. You literally just say, okay, here's all the 4 kinds, and then you look at your thing and go, well, that's probably not going to be playable, and that is. It's super easy. And it's a really nice extra step if you have colorblind people in your life, so that way you can sort of pre-vet a game, so you don't get people's hopes up to play it and then they sit down and realize that they can't do anything and they end up having to show you stuff. And I've had that happen to me a number of times. So that's my recommendation.
Cool.
All right, let's say nice things about publishers for a couple minutes so we're not just ranty. I really want to thank the publishers in modern day publishers for taking chances on weird games. I think that there is something to be said for somebody willing to publish a game where hot pink is the primary color palette that they used on Dinosaur Island, and doing something just really odd to make this game stand out. Or, you know, any number of these other games that I feel like just are doing something really strange, like the escape room in a box things, or, you know, time stories. Even though I have my issues with it, I think that, you know, it does something really odd and interesting and wonderful. And I'm glad that there are games like that. The Seventh Continent's another good example. I'm glad that publishers are really rolling the dice a little bit more and not just publishing the same latest spreadsheet in a box from Reiner Knizia. And I know I'm going to get a little bit of hate for that, because I actually like Reiner Knizia's stuff a lot, but all of his games eventually boil down to a math problem. You know, and those are fine. And if that's your wheelhouse, great. But I don't want only that. And there was a good long while where that was basically the only kind of game we were getting, you know, in the early days of this. So I'm really glad that we have grown as an industry and we're doing more weird stuff to kind of keep people paying attention, you know what I mean? And giving us new stuff to learn, not just new stuff to buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That makes, I don't know. I think that I think the examples of just really fun, weird games that have been coming out lately just keeps getting longer and longer. And I'm really,
I was just disappointed it hasn't gotten great reviews, but that roller coaster marble game is like, you know, kind of a toy.
Which one? The
roller coaster marble game. I don't know what was it called, Coaster Park or something.
Coaster Park. Why don't I know what you're talking about?
I think it was that Pandasaurus did it, I think.
All right, I missed it.
It's like a marble on a cardboard track, and yeah.
Well, I want that in my life.
Somebody in the chat room is going to tell me about it. Chat room,
hold on.
Help me out.
Coaster Park.
Yeah.
Wow, people don't like it at all.
I know, but I mean, it was like
that's the lowest rated game I think I've ever heard of people talk about on a.
That's like the game I wanted to be cool. At least they tried.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sad that it didn't work, because that looks amazing. I have had sitting on my wish list on Amazon a marble roller coaster, like one of those Space Rails deals where you get the little metal like ball bearing and just loops around and around on this thing. I have had one of those on my wish list cart for like months now. I never get around to actually buying it. I want one really bad. This is awesome. I need to own this. I might buy this.
Ordered from France.
Ordered from France. Shut up. I mean, I know it's available in the States for cheap, man. I can.
Well, yeah, people are probably dumping it after the reviews it got, unfortunately.
I need to try it. Have you played it?
No.
All right, you need to do it.
I only heard things.
We need to do it. We'll figure it out. Yeah, no. So I like that we're taking chances on stuff. I feel bad for companies that take a chance on something and then it fails, because I know there's a lot of money that, you know, goes into producing one of these games. And I know that, you know, it can really cripple a company when they have something that they sunk a bunch of cash into and then it doesn't work. But God bless them anyway. And you know what? The more successful a company is, the more freedom they have to take those chances.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, you know, I think one of the things that probably helped Pandasaurus, I mean, maybe it was already in the works, but, you know, the success of the inserts and things from WED's Wasteland Express being a success probably helped them move forward with other things like Dinosaur Island.
Yeah, for sure. I just like I like that we have companies that are doing weird stuff like that. It's a good thing. I also very much like the fact that companies are really stepping up their game on diversity and making sure that we are, you know, trying to be a little bit more socially aware in 2018. I'm not going to turn this into a big super liberal fest here. That's not me. But I do want you to. I do think it's important. I actually asked Molly about this tonight when I was picking her brain on the show. I said, I asked her how important diversity was to her as a female gamer, and she said it's very important, but I also don't think about it very often. And I said, really? And she's like, yeah, because I guess I just kind of expect it to be all dudes, so I started to tune it out, and that made me really sad. Right, like that we've already created this expectation where the industry expect or players expect the industry to be blind to that sort of thing. And we've already kind of ruined it, right? So at least I'm glad that we're sort of clawing our way back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this argument, it seems a little silly to argue against it, in my opinion, because it doesn't hurt anybody either way. So just why not, right? Like it just seems like a good move. So I'm glad companies are doing it. All right. Let's move ahead to the game designers. We've been picking on publishers for a while here. Let's talk about the folks that actually design the games. I know that you and I agree on one thing that we talked about when we first said this is playtesting.
Yes.
Please do some more blind playtesting. You need to be able to hand your game with a printed rule book and a box to a group and then walk away. And if they can't play it, then there's a problem. You need to not answer questions. That's what blind playtesting is, right?
Yes, that's correct. And, and don't expect that we can write a FAQ in BGG a month later and answer those questions.
Yes. So I'll get to my BGG specific rant a little bit later.
Okay.
But yeah, no, blind playtesting seems to be a dying art. And I know that there are companies that still do it, that are really passionate about their blind playtesting, and good. There need to be more of you, but it needs to be a thing. It needs to be a requirement, not just a nice idea. I don't care how awesome your game is and how great your playtesters are from a mechanical standpoint. That doesn't help us. If they are too close to the forest for the trees, or however that saying goes, which I get wrong every single. That saying never sounds right when I say it out loud. You ever have one of those things where you say it and then you're like, I think I got it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crap. That's that for me. Anyway, if your playtesters are too close to the game, they're going to catch little mechanical things, but they're not going to catch like actual learning curve things, right? They're not going to catch basic concepts because they already understand that because you've explained it to them.
Yeah.
And back in the days when I thought I was going to be a game designer, blind playtesting was something I was really bad at as well. And it led to a lot of really bad design choices, quite frankly, just because I was listening to the same voices instead of listening to, outside voices pointing out where the flaws would be. Yeah, let's back up. The Netters in the chat asked us if we prefer a game to come with baggies, even if it comes with an insert. Yes, I think so. Paul Grogan did his unboxing video for Keeper about a month ago, and he went off on a little 30-second rant in his video about how it comes with plenty of baggies. That's good. Everybody should come with baggies. I can't believe you if you don't include baggies in your game. And he's absolutely right. There's no reason not to. It's not like they're expensive. I don't even care if it's a great insert. I don't care if it's the perfect insert.
Barron Park.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. You know what? With an insert that good, who needs a baggie, right? Like, I mean, that insert is just glorious. I made fun of that and I got yelled at.
Yes, I know. People now for that. Oh God.
Dear Lord. So Rattlebones, when Rio Grande did Rattlebones a number of years ago, this is the first of the constructible dice games. Dice Forge is doing the same thing last year, but Rattlebones did the same thing, and all of the
Rattlebones. That's Portal.
No, it's not.
Okay. Which one am I thinking? Oh, I'm thinking of that. Never mind. Go ahead.
Yeah. Rattlebones is Rio Grande. It was designed by Stephen Glenn, if I recall correctly. Rattlebones, all of the die faces that you would have to click into the dice, all of them came in one big bag. Mm-hmm. They included no baggies in the box. There are 14 different colors of die faces that were included in this one gigantic bag, and they just kind of hucked the bag into the box. The sealed bag. It wasn't even a baggie. It was like a sealed bag, so you couldn't even reuse it once you popped it open to get the things out. And I bought my copy at BGG and said, this is great. I'm going to take this over to this here table. Popped it open, was like, well, hell, now what do I do? I've literally just got hunks of crap laying all over the place. It was awful. So that's the other extreme, right? Like at least they could have given me an insert, which it didn't even have that. So yeah, you have to include baggies for sure. For sure. All right, designers. Patrick, do you have something that I've missed?
Oh, I don't know. I was trying to think of something good to say about designers, but
okay. I'm going to say one.
Okay.
I love that designers are iterating off of each other. Yes. I adore this. I just got handed a copy of Solarius Mission from Spielworks. Captain Bislot handed me his copy and said, hey, if you feel like learning this, I'd like to try it sometime. Mm-hmm. And we'll ignore the fact that I had to actually use super glue to build the spinner. And I had to sticker, I'm not exaggerating here, I had to sticker, I believe it was 44 dice.
Yeah.
Shoot me in the face. That is way too many stickers for these big old sausage fingers to be trying to put onto tiny little wooden dice.
That's the deluxified version, isn't it?
When
you have to sticker the dice.
Oh, yeah. If you're tasty minstrel, it is. Yeah, no. No. It was anyway. As I'm grumping like crazy about this game, the game uses a dice drafting system, but it uses basically the Aura Labora Glass Road wheel. So the dice things sit on the wheel, and then every turn the wheel ticks around and makes things cheaper. I think Palaces of Carrara does the same thing, if I recall correctly. Lots of games use this idea. But what I thought was really cool was the Spielworks rulebook specifically said the Rosenberg wheel in the back of the rulebook. They said, we want to, thank you, Uwe, for inventing this really cool idea that we wanted to run with. And I love that. I love that they are unabashedly taking something awesome they found in a previous game and ripping on it.
Yeah.
And that is, and there are obvious examples of this, right? Like Dominion created deck builders and suddenly there were 4.5 million deck building games out there.
Sure.
But it's not a matter of just revamping the same thing. I like the fact that we take games and designers are being inspired by each other to get things, to make better and better things. I love that. And I hope there is more of that.
Yeah, we played, now it's older, but we played Copycat at BGG, which is like total homage to, it's the name of the game.
Like 6 different games, right? Yeah.
We're going to copy other games and combine them all into one.
Sure. Well, and that's like almost Friedman Freeze sort of halfway thumbing his nose too, right? Like,
yeah.
Watch, I can take part of this and part of this, and that's not a terrible game. It's not a great game. I would say that it's decidedly average and forgettable.
Well, I like it because it's like, let's see how broken we can make these combinations sort of game.
That's true. Yeah, but you're right. He made a perfectly good game out of a bunch of bits and pieces. Look at 504 is almost the same thing, right? He basically just created a whole bunch of mechanics that none of which are exactly groundbreaking. There's nothing in that box that is novel.
Correct.
But it all works together. Most of it works together most of the time, depending on however you want to look at that.
One.
Yeah. I'm just saying, based on the group think, it seems like it works together more often than not, as long as you pick the right scenario.
Yeah,
I like that stuff, and I think like we've talked about this on the show numerous times. Uwe Rosenberg is doing this in front of our eyes. Every one of his games is an iteration on something previous.
Sure.
So I love that there's stuff like that happening out there. I just think that that's a wonderful thing, and I hope we see more of that. Meeple Overboard in the chat said, by the way, backing up a little bit, that baggies are very expensive for publishers. Yeah, I would be surprised, I guess. I mean, I suppose it doesn't feel like it would be a lot of extra labor, right? You're already putting everything else in the box, right? How harder is it to throw a few baggies in there? But I guess the manufacturers of the other pieces of the game, when they come to you and you're assembling the game, they're already prepackaged and whatever. I don't know. I can't imagine that it adds that much cost-wise, but I'd be really curious. I don't know. That'd be interesting. One of these days, we're going to have to try and get somebody that's involved in the nuts and bolts side of the publishing curve. You know what I mean? We'll have to see if we can tackle somebody and get them on the show so they can actually talk about numbers, because there's a lot of these numbers that I just don't know.
Sure.
And I don't want to wildly speculate on them. So. All right. Let's see if we can piss off all of the internet in one fell swoop, shall we? Let's talk about the open letter to players.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And just we're going to start with we are players too, so we are as much talking to ourselves as we are everybody else, okay? I am certainly not speaking down from upon high on any of this stuff because I am just as guilty of enabling bad publisher decisions. This is one of the things that I think we all kind of do, right? Like if a game is, let's say the game design is really good, but the rule book's really bad, or the components are, you know, seriously iffy in spots and make the game hard to play. And we're still like, yeah, but the game's really good. But boy, oh boy, if publishers keep getting away with publishing a game that immediately requires an FAQ and errata consistently when it hits the shelves, we maybe should stop giving them money. You know, I mean, is it time? Do we start voting with our wallets a little more? I don't know. I feel weird about this one. Like, yeah. I believe in what I'm saying, but I also feel like I understand it because I'm the same guy, right? Like I literally just talked about an innovative game where I had to sticker 44 dice and grab a tube of super glue to build a spinner, right? Like 3 minutes ago, I talked about that, and I still really want to play the game, and I might buy it. But then I'm like, why would I do that? This is terrible. Spinners are cheap. Like we all know spinners are cheap. How expensive can this be? I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Netters has a good one in the chat room. People should learn the game before going to the table, and not learn it from the rule book. That's a big one.
I guess I agree, unless you have a group that enjoys figuring out games. Like I have my normal Tuesday group. We actively have a good time puzzling through a game together.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's how that works. Okay, that's kind of cool. Okay, look at this. Now, what does this mean? All right, neat. Right? Like we have fun with that.
Okay.
So I would say it depends. That's pretty group dependent. If you have a group that really just wants to play the game, or especially if you have, because I'm blessed, right? My Tuesday group is time is not our biggest struggle point. We all have non-standard schedules. We all have Tuesday as a full day off. So it is a game day, not just a game night. If you have a game night and you've only got 2 hours, yeah, I don't want to be sitting there, you know, beating my head against a wall trying to puzzle out the rules to the latest, you know, Splotter game in front of everybody. That's not going to go well for anybody. But it depends. It depends on the group. It depends on how your group is, like just the kinds of brains you have in your group. Because some people really dig that. I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to throw this in there now because I want to be funny, and I feel like I confused myself with the enabling bad decisions thing. Gamers and everybody, I was on a podcast. I think it was on the Weekly Album, and Scott Alden from BGG was on, and I said, "Hey Aldi, can I request a feature of BGG?" And he said, "Yeah, what's that?" I said, "Can you please write a script on the back end that every time somebody goes into the rules forums for a game and they put the title a few questions or a few rules questions or some dumb questions, you auto ban them for 7 days so that way they have time to think about what they've done wrong and they can come back as more productive members of society." And he said, "No, Bill, I don't think I can do that." And I'm like, "But really, please, the worst thing in the world is to try and find a rule on BGG and have to wade through 97 threads that just say a couple questions and have to open every one of them to figure out what these couple questions are, because that might be the one place that somebody answered it. Stop that. Stop it. Donnie from Low Player Count is my hero because he rides around in those forums and yells at people every time. I don't have the patience for that. I'm doing it here. Stop it. If you need to ask a rules question on BGG, put in the title of the thread what the rules question is, or at least what it relates to. Like questions about shipping is fine in a Puerto Rico thing. A few questions from a noob is not.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, stop that. That's the worst thing ever. It's so frustrating, especially since BGG sucks on a phone anyway. I'm in a game table. This is the only thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so we're here's perfect case in point. We are playing Pandemic Legacy, which is really hard enough because there's no rule book to look at really, and we're stuck in I don't know when we were February. So we're specifically looking for. I don't want to know about what happens to people in March. I want to know what happens to people in February. And did they have the same problem that we ran into? And what the problem was is really irrelevant. But so I'm specifically looking for questions related to February.
Mm-hmm.
So if they didn't have February in the title, I didn't want to be looking at anything but questions and answers related to that.
And here's the deal: the knee-jerk answer for some people is probably going to be, well, yeah, but then they can compile all of them and put them in an FAQ and just pin that FAQ to the top of the thread, and you just have to read that. That's not how that works. You don't get to. No, that's not their job. You have to. Ooh, I feel very strongly about this one. I don't know if you do. I do. It's so annoying. And the problem is, I cannot remember the last time that I had a game day /night/ everything where I didn't have to look at something, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like I am always on BGG trying to find something out. Maybe not always, 80% of the time. Often enough that it makes me crazy. Don't do that. There really does need to be a script. I'm telling you. Aldi, if you ever hear this, please, I will give you a shiny quarter. Make it happen.
I'd give him like 1,000 geek gold, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, which he could definitely just make more of. So I'm sure that's an incredible value to him. But whatever. I like where your head's at. Damn it. All right. Last thing, a little bit of navel gazing. Let's talk about media, folks. I'm not just talking about podcasters and YouTubers. I'm also talking about reviewers. I'm talking about anybody that uses a public forum to express their opinions. Okay. Now, those of us that are official media, I don't even know what that means. There's air quotes for days, audio listeners. Just so you know, my huge sausage fingers are making air quotes as we speak, as much as humanly possible. Media folk, pundits, I think is the word that moderator Chris used that I really liked. We might be louder, but that doesn't mean that these things don't apply. And the first thing is, I really think it's super important that we all talk about, like, be really upfront and transparent when it comes to things like sponsorships, review copies, allegiances. You know what I mean? If you have a working relationship with a specific publisher or designer or whatever, I really think that if you're doing anything opinion based, you need to be really transparent about that. I think this is a very big deal. Every reviewer, I would like to see, at the bare minimum, tell me how they acquired the game, or if they acquired it, right? Like, how did their plays come to pass? I really think that's a big deal. Like, I don't know, and maybe I'm alone here on thinking that's a big deal, but
Paul Grogan had a long conversation about this on his Slack channel and on his vlog recently. And although there's a minority opinion on this subject, it's still important to some people, and therefore it's important.
Right.
This was his approach.
Sure. And here's the deal. I think that like Paul has a working relationship with, What's Your Game and Check Games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are the two companies that he works with pretty much regularly, and he works with them, but he's really open about it. He's never hid the fact that he works for those two companies. And I don't think he'd be cross with me for saying something on my show, because he's never been any kind of sneaky about it. And I think that's really important. If you hear his opinion on stuff, that he works for those companies. So of course, that's, where he stands. And I think that's a really big deal for all of us in media, right? Is just be honest and don't try to hide things because you feel like it's going to give people the wrong impression. If you give people the truth right up front and you tell them, all of the context, let them make their own decisions on how honest or not honest you are. Right. Like, that's part of how this whole relationship between, in this venue works. At least I feel like it. And yes, I did say navel gazing, Chad. Of course I did. That's sort of what this is, right? Is like being super introspective. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I like a nice orange.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. I think that there's just a lot of, there seems to be a lot of, I don't know how to describe it. There seems to be a fair amount in our hobby of dissent being frowned upon in certain things, right? Where
Yes.
we don't want to hear opposing opinions. We want, everything to be positive and sunshine and rainbows. And I definitely understand it because the world is a very negative place and this is our escape, right? Like gaming, this is why we do this, because this is a thing that we enjoy that fills us with joy. And you don't want to hit somebody else to be crapping all over the thing that you really like. I definitely get that. But I think you also have to be true to your own voice as well. And you have to just be really honest, right? And I think the old adage of if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all is valid, but there also needs to be space for discussion and critique, right? Like we can't just ignore things that we don't like. I mean, we can, but then we end up getting more things we don't like, because we didn't say anything. I don't know. It's a weird slippery slope. I guess I just want to see people be honest and speak with their own voice all the time. And maybe that's just too pie in the sky and I'm just too much of an optimist. That's probably what it is. Patrick, do you speak?
It'd just be better if it led to a more open discussion or honest discussion rather than, what do you mean you don't like my game?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you didn't read the rule book,
Yeah. Or whatever. You must be an idiot.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's part of it, right? Is that we all get a little bit defensive. And again, I said this before and I'll say it again. I am not talking down. I am just as guilty, right? Like I have these same problems. I feel, I get, anxious about engaging in a topic that I feel like I'm not going to say correctly. And I worry that I'm going to say things the wrong way and I'm going to upset somebody somewhere along the way. But on the other hand, why am I doing this if I'm not going to be honest? Like what's the point of doing a podcast on a YouTube show and whatever if I'm not going to be true to who I am? And that's why I like people like Patrick on the show too, because Patrick could take his shirt off for the show. He has no fear whatsoever, right? So like if there's something to be said.
Now's the time?
No, I don't know. Well, maybe we might start the After Dark thing on the regular. We might do a once a month After Dark show. Like the first show of each month might be After Dark, and we'll just make sure we have you on for there so you can take your shirt off. Does that work?
Awesome.
You all right with that?
Wow, it's been a long time.
It's been just the right amount of time actually, and I think it could be slightly more. So I don't know. I hope that our open letter made some kind of sense to you, dear listener / viewer. It's not. When I came up with the idea, I really wanted this to be sort of a rant, because there are those things that I have always wanted to say, and I feel like we keep saying in shows, but we can't stress the importance of. But I also want it to be a celebration, right? Because there are so many good things that are still that are happening too, right? Like we have. Aldi just said something about hitting a really great milestone for the site. Like he had like 5 million users or something like that. Some crazy amount of user accounts or something that he finally crossed over. And I love that. We are expanding faster than ever. But this hobby has turned from this weird niche thing from Germany, 20 years ago, to having multiple conventions vying for time that are dedicated to only this, right? So we've really come a long way. I just want us to keep moving forward. I want us to keep taking the steps to keep making things better. And that's all of us, like I think that none of us are perfect, right? Like anyone that's ever gone to church can attest to that part, right? Mm-hmm. So I just feel like I want us to keep going. I want things to keep progressing. I want us to keep taking the steps and facing the facts that we are not perfect yet and stop believing our own hype so much, right? And be willing to accept when we're wrong about stuff and be willing to learn where we have places to improve. I think that's a big deal. And so if my stupid little YouTube show for an hour helps put a couple ideas into people's heads, then all the more to it. So nobody take any of this super personally and get upset. If you have any hate mail, send it to me at thecubistpodcast@gmail.com. If you have love mail, you can send that there too. Just throwing that out there. thecubistpodcast@gmail.com. You can, of course, always go to thecubistpodcast.com if you want to check out more about the show stuff. Patrick, we've gotten to cheap plugs. I tried to segue smoothly, and then I realized that I wasn't going to be good at it. So, and by the way, Netters, you're awesome. Thank you. Patrick, where do people find out more about you?
They can check me out over on What Did You Play This Week podcast, and they can talk to me on the Twitters at Over the Hillier.
Did you have what did you play this week? Just did the big new to us games of 2017, which I totally failed to get in a segment for because I suck.
Yes.
I'm really glad Brandon's not on the show this week. He'd have just been yelling at me for an hour for not doing anything with the show.
That's all right. We got plenty of people jumping in doing stuff.
Eric did 19. Eric Buscemi, part-time co-host of the show, did 19. Yes. He was supposed to do 10. Damn cheater.
No, we're supposed to do 3.
3?
Yes.
I thought it was 10.
It was 3. He did 19. So I said, I'm doing 85 next week.
Perfect.
I have a question, though.
Sure.
Is the audio show still happening?
Okay, so Daniel Newman actually just contacted me today. He got a new job out in the real world that has taken him out of his groove.
Mm-hmm.
But he contacted me today and said that he's back. He's planning on getting back to it. Okay. So audio listeners, bear with. I promise we have not totally forgotten about you. It's just a matter of the infrastructure. Sometimes the real life intrudes.
Yep.
So I would say tell everybody that's grumping about that the show is available on YouTube all the time, and we would love your views. Just saying. So chat room, thank you as always for being here and making the show more fun. Room. It's always more fun with people in the chat. I really do think we're going to go to the once a month. You know what? I'm just calling it now. The first Monday of every calendar month, assuming there is a show. So the first show of every calendar month, that's a better way to say it. First show of every calendar month, we will do a Cubist After Dark episode where we will basically stop the mainstream and start up another one right away. So that way we can just talk about whatever. So
wow.
Yeah. Well, we did it last week and we had a lot of fun. We ended up just kind of shooting the breeze and having a great time. We pulled Travis Hill in. So if you didn't get a chance to check that out because you only checked the weekly show, go back to the YouTube channel. You'll see Cubist After Dark on New Year's Day. And there's lots more stuff to talk about on there. And chat room, it'll be a live stream just like this. So if you want to take part in it, you can join us on the next one next month, not this month. So you'll all be hungover from the Super Bowl by the time we do the next After Dark. That's my theory. So anyway, chat room, thanks for hanging out. Yeah, whatever, Chad, you're offended by everything. Thanks for hanging out. Hope you all had a good time. And everybody, we will catch you later. Have a fantastic week of gaming. We'll see you on the flip side. Be good. Bye.
Bye.